Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen pushes unsolicited diet advice onto me, so I showed off my abs to her. After that, tried to throw me under the proverbial bus, ended up totally backfiring on her. And after that, my boss demanded I serve all customers and fill all shelves no matter how far past closing hours it was. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to control anyone else's diet. You really do need to lay off the Krispy Kremes, Reddit boy. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen pushes unsolicited diet advice onto me, so I showed off my abs to her. Last Saturday, I, 30 male, was meeting my girlfriend's, who's 25 female, friends for the first time. Since I'm currently in the middle of an intense weightlifting program, I'm eating a crazy amount. My girlfriend, being the champion she is, decided that we could go to a nice all-you-can-eat buffet in our city for lunch with her friends. We met in front of the restaurant where she introduced me to her friends, 2 women and 1 man. About 30 minutes into lunch, the conversation turned to fitness and nutrition because someone had asked what I was interested in. Around that time, I got my 3rd full plate of ham, chicken, veggies, and a big bowl of macaroni because I could. I mean, I grew up with some serious food insecurity. If I'm going to spend $60 to eat at a buffet, I'm going to be the reason the buffet doesn't cost $50 instead. Around this time, one of her friends, a nutritionist, told me I was eating way too much. I honestly thought this crossed the line, because who the heck says something like that at a buffet of all places? I responded by assuring her that I was lifting really hard and trying to gain weight. This apparently was interpreted as an open invitation to give me more unsolicited advice, so she continued that I was going to put on a lot of body fat and overstress my organs eating like that all the time. Plus, I couldn't put muscle mass on that quickly anyway. I let her rant run its course, thinking it would be over soon, but she kept pushing the issue every time I said I was fine. This easily went on for 5 minutes while everyone else was talking about other stuff. Eventually, I got tired of it, stood up, and pulled up my t-shirt to show my abs. I told her I had been eating like this for several months, and if she could show me where I was getting metabolic syndrome. She then continued debating about how I probably had a lot of visceral fat, 32-inch waist, and that she was only trying to help. Again, I told her I was fine and kept eating. Finally, the other people at the table remembered we existed, and there was a lot of awkward silence. Well, yesterday, my girlfriend approached me and said her friends don't like me very much. We had already argued about this on Saturday after we all left, and I told her what I did was absolutely reasonable considering the circumstances. Now she's giving me these cryptic messages about how much she values her friends and how she has known them longer than she has known me. I'm afraid I overstepped a line, but was I really wrong here? Not the jerk. Your girlfriend should be mad at her friend that doesn't know when to drop the subject. Right? I would be mortified if my friend was badgering my boyfriend like that, especially when the first time meeting him. Badgering anyone like that, she showed herself to be a harassive, know-it-all jerk. Like so many dietitians, sorry to the good ones, but I've only met pushy ones. Dietitian at lunch with friends about me ordering meat, sauce, and asking for vegetables and salad. No carbs? That's not a healthy meal. Me. My doctor recommended cutting carbs to fix some health problems. X told me that you live in Y area. That's a lovely place. How long have you lived there? Her. You really should see a dietitian about that instead of listening to a doctor. Me. I'm good, thanks. X told me that you have kids. What age are they? Her. Doctors know nothing about healthy food. That's my area, and I can treat at family and friends' price. Me. Thanks, that's nice, but I'll stay with my doctor's advice. Turning to someone else and trying to ask them something, only to be cut off by the dietitian again, telling me to order potatoes or pasta to get a healthy meal. Me. My diet has made me lose 30 kilograms in 6 months. My fibromyalgia isn't even showing. I sleep at night. I have energy and I feel happy. It's working for me, so I don't need advice. Her getting angry about me pushing keto. You shouldn't push your diet on everyone else. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the nutritionist? Please let us know. Bruh, your girlfriend's friends sound whack. Tried to throw me under the proverbial bus, ended up totally backfiring on her. I was building an online training module at work that is intended to teach existing users how to work a new process. It has interactive elements, quizzes, segments to work through for a few sample scenarios, etc. Now, we had recently got a new associate director who, from what I can tell, advanced through the company by throwing other people under the bus. She gets promoted not for her own merits, but because at the end of the day, she has had less mud sticking to her than the other applicants. It's uncanny to the point that there simply had to be more to it than stupid office politics. I'll get to that in a bit. So, after I have the first draft of the module done, it gets sent out for the usual round of testing, and there are of course a couple things that need to be corrected. I build the module off the notes the subject matter experts leave me, and a few things inevitably get lost in translation. But this new associate director just rips it to shreds, complaining that it's completely incomprehensible, needs to go into much greater detail, asking questions about nearly every individual mouse click in the sample scenarios, and overall stating that it's impossible to follow. The thing is, this module is intended for our finance department, for people who have a background in finance and have already been trained on how to use our internal software. She is a training services associate director with a teaching background. The module isn't supposed to make sense to a former middle school social studies teacher. It's supposed to make sense to people with finance degrees. I push back and try explaining this to her in a million different ways, but she's having none of it. So I have to go back to the subject matter experts with her 20 pages worth of criticism. And at first, they think I'm joking. I had to forward her email before they finally believed me. So for the next 2 weeks, we're going over every nuance, including readdressing everything that was covered during their 3-week classroom training. How to set up their network drives, how to set up Outlook, including things as nuanced as, if you don't know how to set up your email signature, click here. I mean, really basic stuff that has nothing to do with what the module was originally supposed to teach. But I now had to include it all because our new associate director couldn't find the on switch if you staple their finger to it. This wastes my time, the subject matter expert's time, and time spent re-recording all the voice work. If you've done voice work in the past, you know you never get it done in one take. After it's all done, I send it back out for review and approval, and the associate director simply doesn't respond. A week passes. The finance director takes an interest in why this module is almost a month overdue. I go to forward the associate director's email again, except now I can't find it. Odd, seeing as how I have a hoarding problem when it comes to email. I check with one of the subject matter experts I was working with. He can't find it either. Turns out none of us can. It's gone. So I check with a friend of mine in IT who, after a little detective work, discovers that a week ago someone did a compliance delete on the Exchange server. This basically is a seek and destroy for messages meeting certain criteria. In this case, a specific phrase she used in her email. I start digging through Outlook, trying to find particular emails related to this that might be used to defend my actions, and they're all gone. Inbox, sent items, deleted items, every last one of them. Any email containing that particular phrase anywhere in it. This kind of thing is normally used by admins to mass delete spam or phishing emails from all users at once. Except in this case, someone apparently deleted emails that showed evidence of her awful decisions. My friend in IT can smell a juicy story a mile away and was very interested in seeing where this went. She recovered the deleted emails, and I promptly saved them to a flash drive. For the next few days, every time I had any email with this associate director's name on it, even unrelated stuff, you never know how something might fit together, I saved a copy to the flash drive. I informed the subject matter experts to do the same, and we started building our offline evidence locker. I didn't want to blow the lid on it just yet. I wanted to see if my suspicions were correct. Maybe a lifetime of watching spy movies and cop dramas had corrupted my thinking. Maybe there was another explanation. Who knows? It could happen. I'm not God. I don't know everything. I'll play defense. So after several weeks in total trying to appease this associate director's unquenchable thirst for irrelevant details, and then getting ignored for a week, she finally publishes it and sends it to the finance director to approve so it can go live. Woo! Except the module, which was supposed to be a 30-minute online course, now contained 3 hours of content and went down several irrelevant rabbit holes that had been deemed critical supporting information. As an analogy, imagine designing a training module to teach a nurse how to enter some new CPT codes and being told you have to teach him how to read too, because he might not know what words are. That's how much BS was rammed into this thing. And the finance director, of course, hated it and was surprised that such a rambling mess of a module would come from me of all people. So he calls a meeting with me and the associate director on Tuesday to get some answers, and sure enough, she immediately tried to distance herself from it. Tried to paint it as she made a couple suggestions, and I clearly went way overboard. How I must have sent her a different version than she approved and switched them afterwards. That's not even possible. It would get thrown back into a draft status. She kept trying to talk over me as I voiced my defense. And to his credit, the finance director finally just muted her so I could speak. And boy did I. I explained everything. I shared my screen, popped in my flash drive, and opened my copies of the emails that had supposedly been deleted. Every email exchange where she complained about the material, I pushed back, and she flat out ordered me to build the module in the way I did. She abruptly left the meeting and went offline. The finance director asked if I could send him a copy of all relevant files, and as I did so, I told him they might not be there later, and then explained what I had learned about someone in IT using the compliance delete. He assures me he'll look into it, and the crap immediately hit the fan. The associate director never logged back on. There was a massive internal audit where people from her previous departments were asked to provide statements. Leadership tried to keep it hush-hush, but you just can't keep something that big under wraps. I don't know the specific what's and how's, but the associate director and one of the IT managers had both left the company to pursue the next stage of their careers, and we sincerely wish them the best. I don't really do the social media thing, but over the next few days, as the rumor mill did what rumor mills do, I heard their crap absolutely blew up, and it came out that the associate director and that IT manager were having an affair. Now this all went down about a month ago, but as I wrote this post, I thought to check online court records. Both are now facing divorces, filed by their respective spouses. So yeah, there's a void in my direct leadership, in IT's leadership, and the entire IT department is getting a shakedown by information security to determine if there were any other leaks. I spent some time reflecting on why this whole series of events happened, and my best guess is she wanted to make a grand entrance by spearheading this masterwork training module that covered every possible scenario and contained any and all information anyone could possibly want. Then, as she started to realize how wasteful, rambling, and unnecessary it was, she realized that her grand entrance would be a grand faceplant. So she tried to erase the evidence and pin all the nonsense on me to save face, but inadvertently set in motion the events that would expose her little arrangement with the IT manager. As someone who frequently has to watch training modules for work, I appreciate nothing more than a short and to-the-point presentation. Being told to watch a 3-hour training video for 30 minutes of relevant information would make me rethink my career choices. This, however, was quite enjoyable to read. Thanks for sharing. My boss demanded I serve all customers and fill all shelves, no matter how far past closing hours it was. So my first job I ever worked at for a few years was a grocery retail store with several different departments, including a deli for lunch meat and cheese, which is where I worked. One night I was working 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. 9 p.m. is when the deli and other special departments closed, and we're expected to be done and clocked out, but the rest of the store remained open 24/7 for general groceries. It was me and one other guy. We had an especially busy night, and we were a little behind on our cleaning as a result. But we had our meat slicing machines already coated with sanitizer after working for 15 minutes to get all the little meat chunks and shavings out of every corner, as we were pretty serious about making sure those things were clean as can be. It's about 8:55 at this point. We're almost late to leave, and the store we worked for did not like overtime. If you were getting any amount of overtime, you would get chewed out the next day for it, even for a little amount. A woman walks up to the counter and starts looking through the product. As we had a glass case filled with a bunch of types of our lunch meats pre-sliced and ready to go for bagging up. She looks at one and says, "I want this turkey right here, but I'd want it freshly sliced." I, of course, look to my coworker, and we both can see the 2 slices we have are still covered in the sanitizer we use and are drying, as per the food safety protocol written on the bottle that says to allow 20 to 30 minutes minimum for the sanitizer to dry after application. I tell her, "Well, ma'am, we can't really do that right now. Our slicers are both being cleaned at the moment as the department is closed in 5 minutes, but I'd be glad to get you something here from our cold case." "So, you're not gonna slice it fresh for me? That's what you're saying? I replied, That's correct. I apologize. Without another word, she walks away, and myself and my coworker go back to what we were doing, and we finish cleaning and go home after about 5 more minutes, narrowly clocking out on time. Fast forward 2 days later. Me and the same coworker come in and start getting to work like a normal day. About 3 p.m., 2 hours into my shift, I personally get called into the head honcho's office, the store director, as they're titled. I think nothing of it and head on upstairs and go inside the office and sit down. The store director hands me a piece of paper and says, "Tell me what caused this." I look at the paper and it's a printed out screenshot of a Google review for our store. 1 star out of 5, and a full paragraph from that lady of 2 nights before complaining that she didn't get her freshly sliced meat from the rude employee, and then described specifically me. I explained exactly what happened 2 nights prior, as clearly as I'm typing it out here. The director is getting heated and begins to cut me off while I'm speaking, asking, "Why would slicers be covered in sanitizer at 8:55? You're scheduled to work until 9 p.m. I said, "Yes, I am. But seeing as I'm constantly being reminded not to get any overtime, so I usually start cleaning them around 8:30 p.m. The director gets even more upset and raises her voice. "I don't care. That's not how it works. If you have a customer, you serve them, and you'd better start making sure those shelves are filled before you leave, or you won't be working here anymore. Now get out." I'm pretty salty at this point. I go back down to the department, and my coworker asks what happened, and I told him. He says, "So they want everything done before we leave?" I said, "Yup," and without another word, he knew what we needed to do. 9 p.m. hits as usual, and our shelves are at the usual standard of half full, but seeing as we've been given a new standard, we decided to stay and make sure that we did what I was instructed to do. We spent next several hours past closing time slicing and slicing and slicing until every single tray of meat and cheese was full. We had plastic totes in the big fridge full of cheese that we sliced that were wrapped up in half-pound blocks for ease of sale. So we decided to fill that tub over the brim with every single type of cheese we had available. We cut up around 70 pounds of cheese and wrapped it up in the fridge. We also had a Subway-style sandwich counter where we made sandwiches to go and also pre-made on the shelves for sale. We made double the usual amount of sandwiches and filled the shelves as per requested. Not a single shelf had a single empty spot on it by the time we were done. After every single possible item and shelf was as full as it could be, we finally started to clean and close. It was around 3 a.m. when we finally left. The department opens at 5 a.m. We were exhausted, but our spiteful overtime venture made us feel pretty good. We got about 6 hours of overtime in. They hated anyone getting even 5 to 10 minutes of overtime. We both came in the next day at 1 p.m. as usual, expecting complete retaliation. But nope. Instead, our department manager of the deli kind of saunters over to us and says, "Hey, you should be good to start cleaning up at 8:30 like usual. I think she, the director, got the point you made." Normally, overtime would be asked to be taken care of by clocking out for lunches or coming in later than usual, but they let us keep all 6 hours of that overtime. They never said anything to us about overtime again after that. I accepted a job that paid almost double about 6 months after this incident and never ever went back to retail nightmare. You're replaceable. Okay, bye. I worked for a company for just under 5 years. The company I worked for existed for an additional 10 years prior to me. While I worked at this company, it ballooned to be the #1 provider in the region for its unique service with about 75% of the market. It was a small business of about 15 employees. I loved my jobs, and the skills I learned while working there were quite valuable. I loved my team and the clients we provided services for. My twice-yearly reviews with the owner were always 10 out of 10 with no recommendations for improvement. I was exceptional at my job in every way. I handled company operations, HR and payroll, customer service, marketing, employee management, schedules, employee and client training, and many other things at this company. I was also able to step in and do any of my teammates' jobs if they were out sick or on vacation. The owner of the company was giving out a bonus late summer last year, and mine, while being more than previous years, was notably less than my teammates. I asked owner, "Are the bonuses related to performance? And if so, what could I have done to earn more?" Owner replied, "The bonuses are not performance related. You were just more replaceable than the others." "Oh, okay," I replied, and I proceeded to process each one of the bonuses, then went to lunch. I called my spouse to gain wisdom and advice. I was pretty lit, but didn't want to make a rash decision. My spouse is very intelligent, and while they are not a fortune teller, they have an ability to foresee various responses and all the potential outcomes. They are business-wise and have been on the executive team of a large company for the past 21 years, while also serving on several community boards and business advisory boards. We decided together to continue forward with our scheduled vacation and use the time away to calm our minds, relax, have fun, and to also determine the best course of action for me. We were leaving after working one more day, so I worked like all was normal the rest of the day and the following day, then left on vacation. While away, we discussed several scenarios, the potential outcomes, consulted with a business advisor and a business attorney. With all the advice I received, I determined that upon my return from vacation, I would resign from my role with a 2-week notice. However, in a fit of rage, I was immediately terminated by the owner, which was one of the scenarios we thought would happen, so I was prepared for owner's poor reaction. During the next couple weeks, I created and opened a competing business offering similar services. However, I offered more customizable options with higher quality service and results. I knew our clients wanted these options and had proposed said options several times at old workplace, but was never greenlighted to implement the changes for no reason other than owner didn't come up with the idea, so it was a stupid idea. I also maintained communications with a few people from my old team. My old team did not relay the day-to-day happenings at my previous workplace, and I never asked about the company. However, they would vent to me on occasion. I would listen without comment. I knew service, quality, and the work environment in general suffered since my departure. Morale went down, and clients were less satisfied. I also read the Google and Facebook reviews for old company. Yikes. Additionally, 2 full-time and 1 part-time persons were hired to fill my role, and a portion of my responsibilities, like HR and payroll, were filled by outside companies. I quickly built up my business, and within 3 months was able to hire several of my old teammates. They were able to jump in on day 1 with minimal training as they were the best employees at my old workplace. The quality of previous workplaces' offerings continued to fall, which sent additional business my way and quickly caused incoming work to be non-existent at old workplace. My old workplace went from being the #1 provider of unique service in the region to nothing in a matter of months. My previous employer is now searching for gainful employment. I know this because over the weekend, owner applied for a position at my spouse's company. Side note, I think my spouse's company should bring my previous employer in for an interview, but when they arrive, surprise, I'm the interviewer, and all I say is, "How replaceable am I now?" My spouse, rightfully so, has said no. Moral of the story: don't tell your employees that they are replaceable because they might create a competing business that is better than yours while taking your best employees and your clients, which will leave you with no business to sell. Owner's whole retirement plan was to sell business and starting all over by searching for employment under someone else. Looks like your company was replaceable. Not me. I have transitioned in my professional life from entry-level to management and ownership. When I was an entry-level employee just out of school, I always thought it was a mistake for ownership to treat valued employees poorly, but figured I was young, and the older, more seasoned business professionals knew better, so I must be wrong. As I've aged and progressed in business and in my career, one thing I learned is I was right when I was only a year out of school. Yes, costs must be monitored, but there is a difference between being mindful of costs and being cheap with your employees. Value your employees, pay them what they deserve and more, and productivity, client satisfaction, revenue, and profitability will follow from that treatment. You learned this lesson, benefited yourself, and did over your jerk ex-boss in the process. Nice work. Am I the jerk for refusing to walk my daughter down the aisle? I, male 49, have 2 daughters, Marie, who's 27, and Julie, who's 23. For context, Julie is not my biological daughter since I married my current wife when she was only 2, and since her dad was absent, I adopted her as my own, but I love both my daughters the same. This being said, I'm closer to Julie since she has and still lives with us, and we do almost everything together. Instead, Marie is closer to her mom, mainly because her mom got full custody of her and she has never lived with me. Now to the main issue. Julie got engaged about a year ago and immediately asked me to walk her down the aisle. I of course agreed and have actively helped her with the planning of the wedding, which is scheduled to be October of 2022. A couple of weeks ago, Marie asked me to grab some coffee with her and let me know she's currently pregnant and will soon get married. To be honest, this got me off guard since I didn't even know she had a boyfriend. She apparently will have quite a fast wedding since she doesn't want to show too much, meaning her wedding will be in 3 months. She says it'll be a small ceremony and asked me to walk her down the aisle. I felt weird about it since I don't even know her fiance and it's all so sudden, so I asked her to let me think about it. It seemed like this answer surprised her, but she understood. I then went home and let my wife and daughter know, and Julie asked me to please decline since she wanted to be the first to be walked down the aisle, and since she asked first, thinks that I have a stronger commitment to her. I agreed since this is more of an us thing rather than an afterthought like Marie's wedding. I then sent a message to Marie letting her know of my decision with a brief explanation and even offered options like her mom or stepdad to walk with her. I also reassured her that I'd still be with her there and support her with anything. She almost immediately called me crying and telling me how much of a horrible father I am and how I apparently have always played favorite, which hurt me since it's simply not true. I love them both. I tried to explain my reasoning, but she has said it doesn't matter and doesn't care about my excuses. She ended up hanging up, and my ex has been sending me tons of texts berating me and calling me names. Now, word has spread to some family members, and they are calling me a deadbeat and trash. But my wife and daughter agree that my decision is the only fair one and shouldn't be pressured into doing something I don't want. I'm starting to feel guilty, but I'm honestly unsure. Am I the jerk for refusing to walk my daughter down the aisle? You're the jerk. You should be walking them both down the aisle instead of just picking one over the other. Julie wanting to be the first one to be walked down the aisle is frankly a ridiculous request, and if you explain that as your reasoning to your daughter, no wonder she was crying on the phone. What the heck? If Marie had happened to get married first a few years ago, would Julie be bugging OP now and refusing to let him walk her down the aisle because Marie already got to do it? Like, the whole firsties thing makes zero sense. It sounds like Julie resents that Marie is OP's biological daughter and just wants to have one over on her, having their dad walk her down the aisle. And it sounds like OP is like, dope, sounds great, Julie. Yeah, Julie is insecure about Marie being OP's biological kid and wants to ensure that she's OP's only actual kid with respect to their relationship. So no sharing anything with Marie. Everything Julie wants from OP needs to be Julie's alone. And they, Julie and OP's wife, claim they're just respecting what OP wants to do, when they're the ones who told him to make the choice in the first place. I bet it's not the first time something like this has happened. Absolutely, you're the jerk. Yeah, you're the jerk here big time. You're refusing to walk your daughter down the aisle because your other daughter wanted to be first? That's super selfish. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or one of his daughters? Please let us know. You're wrong for doing her like that, bruh. Am I the jerk for telling mother-in-law that while I cannot break HIPAA, I can dictate how much she sees her future grandkids? I'm an ER nurse. I also have a terrible relationship with my mother-in-law. She came into the ER on Valentine's Day, and I went into the room and she immediately demanded a new nurse. To be fair, I was about to suggest she get a different nurse because in general we don't work with family, but she was super rude about it and said I was incompetent. The real issue is, mother-in-law was with a date. This man is a family friend. He was actually father-in-law, her very, very recent ex-husband's best friend for 20 plus years. My husband despises this man and would have a strong reaction to knowing that she's dating him. Mother-in-law's dad had a business falling out with him and there were multiple lawsuits. His kids don't like mother-in-law. So to say people would flip their crap if they found out that they were dating is an understatement. I absolutely can't tell anyone due to HIPAA. I can't even mention to my husband that I saw her and it's stressing me out so badly. Mother-in-law reminded me of HIPAA at the hospital and I reassured her that I would never risk my career like that. Mother-in-law laughed and said she knew it was going to drive me crazy and she was loving it. This morning she texted me that she was just reminding me that she knows her legal rights and she will destroy my life if I tell anyone. I wrote back again that I won't tell. I asked if she was ever going to tell her son, and she wrote back, laughing out loud, Maybe if we get married. I told her she was a jerk mom, and she said that she hardly ever sees him since he married such a jerk, so it is a non-issue. At that point, I felt like she was goading me, because she must know that it drives me crazy to not be able to tell him. I wrote back that I cannot break HIPAA as she is clearly aware, but I can dictate how much time she spends with future grandkids, so maybe she shouldn't be calling me names, and just wrote she should fess up to her son. Mother-in-law wrote back that she has no intentions of having a relationship with my kids, but then said the fact I said that shows what type of person I am, and since I'm a trash person, she doesn't even want to meet my future kids. I don't know if I went too far with what I said. You need to go to your HR and let them know what's going on. Tell them your mother-in-law came in with a date and is now threatening you with HIPAA, even though you have done nothing and told no one that you have no intentions to. This needs to be on record in case she decides to mess with you more. You could maybe even screenshot and print out where she is threatening you with it. As a nurse, I agree with this 100%. Cover yourself with a paper trail. Don't let her decide that she has a weapon at a future date. And once you have a proper paper trail going, when she keeps harassing you, you will be able to turn it back against her. Blackmail is a felony, and this is blackmail. I don't think this qualifies as blackmail. Telling someone, if you break the law, I'll make sure you pay for it, doesn't strike me as blackmailing someone. However, it could be considered as harassment if she continues sending her messages and reminding her how much she enjoys her suffering. Not the jerk, but is it a violation still if she's texting you about it on a private number outside of the hospital and threatening your career? Does your hospital have a lawyer on staff? Because you may want to talk to them. And is it a violation if your husband happens to read the messages on your privately owned phone and figures it out? It would be pretty amazing if mother-in-law incriminated herself over text, especially if OP just said really bland and non-incriminating stuff back. Married couples are in each other's phones all the time. Okay, I'm not a lawyer, but I do know a bit about HIPAA, and OP should be super careful about what she's texting back to mother-in-law, especially since mother-in-law is clearly out for blood. She probably should not be having any sort of text conversation about anything that happened in the hospital with a patient. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.